Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So before we start, mag-a-assign lang ako ng mga co-hosts. Since madami-dami yung naglalabas paso. Okay. And make sure na-mute yung mga classmates natin para hindi nag-e-echo yung mga boses. Okay, so I have already assigned co-host. Okay, so today is Friday already, and our subject is practical research to quantitative research. Okay, so every Friday ito, and then all strand naman. So I'm expecting na lahat ng strand na andito. Okay, can you see my screen? You can type yes in the chat box. Okay, so yes, okay. And then, I believe na naririnig natin yung boses ko. Okay. So, before we start, just a few reminders. Ayan. So, sa subject ko, wala tayong gagawin ni research or anything else like parang feasibility studies or research papers. So, hindi ko na pagagawin yun. So, but yun, let's expect na medyo madami-dami yung activities na ibibigay ko since yun yung kapalit ng research paper na gagawin nyo. So, hindi ko na ipapagawa yun. Marami lang tayong sasagutan sa paper. And then, siyempre, sa paper na magre-release ako ng 2 activities. For example, yung written works and then yung performance task. So, for the performance task, ayun, actually, pati na naman sa ulit-ulitin sagutan. So, na-experience nyo na ba yun? Yung nasagutan nyo na and then ulitin nyo ulit kapag may mali kayo just to correct yung mga wrong answers nyo. Ginagawa nyo ba yun, yung ibang students dito? Yan, kaya nasagutan nyo na, then mababa yung score nyo, tapos tinry nyo siyang ulitin. So, napataas yung score nyo. Okay, so I think everyone is aware and knowledgeable na pwede ulitin yung activities natin. Okay, so for the performance task and written work, for the performance task, merong mga activities merong mga performance tasks na kino-consider ko yung highest score. So make sure kung meron kayong time, lalo na kapag maaga naman sinend yung assignment, yan, gawin nyo na yung best nyo na ma-perfect yun. Pwede nyo ulitin kahit ilang beses. Huwag kayong mahiyang i-perfect yung mga assignments. Okay, so pag performance task, meron akong mga activities or mamimili ako doon kung ano yung i-record ko ng highest score. Kapag written work naman, lahat ng written works pwede nyo ulitin. So, lahat ng written works, pwedeng i-perfect. Okay, so yun, mataas ako magbigay ng grade as long as na-maximize nyo yung opportunity na i-perfect yung mga exam. So, I can give as high as 100, lalo na kung masipag naman pala kayong magsagot. Ayan, nire-review nyo, tapos sinasagutan nyo ulit, na-perfect nyo, then I can give as high as 100. Okay, kung maaga lang ako magbigay ng mga activities kasi syempre merong mga students na kahit wala pa yung lesson, gusto na nilang sagutan yung mga assignments. Lalo na kung wala naman silang magawa sa bahay yun, nag-a-advance sila ng assignment. So, doon, mag-send ako lagi in advance ng mga activities. Okay, for those students na nag-a-advance. Okay, so maliwanag ba yun? So, ina-expect ko no, na wala nang babagsak kasi gano'n na yung kasunduan natin. Nire-record ko na yung high score. So, ang bumabagsak lang sa akin, though nagbabagsak talaga ako, meron akong mga subjects na merong mga students na hindi nakapasa. Yun yung mga students na hindi talaga nagsasagot at all. No, yung wala talagang sinasagutan. Or sinagutan lang pero below half ng total item yung score. So wala akong magagawa kasi ano namang i-record ko, di ba? Kung below half of the items or may mga activities na hindi sinasugatan. So hindi ko kaya ipasa yun. Okay, so ayun, let's maximize the opportunity na pwedeng ulitin yung activities at pwedeng i-perfect. Okay, so I'm expecting na most of you hindi nababagsak. Okay, so maliwanag ba? Maliwanag ba yun? Okay ba? Okay. So, for this research, no, actually we have two Merong ibang teacher na magdi-discuss for the qualitative and for me naman, it's quantitative. So, familiar na kayo, kung nakinig kayo no, doon sa statistics and probability during high school. And so, I think magkakaroon tayo ng idea dito sa subject na to. Okay, so lesson 1, chapter 1, nature of quantitative research. Lesson 1, qualities of quantitative research. Okay, so how can numbers be used to describe phenomena in nature? Okay, so paano nga ba, no? Akala natin, di ba, ang nade-describe lang yung mga nangyayari sa paligid. Gamit lang ng adjective word. So, paano natin nade-describe yung mga nangyayari sa nature natin using numbers? So, for example, mga degrees Celsius, ganon. So, malalaman natin na mainit yung kapaligiran natin kung mataas yung mga degrees Celsius, di ba? So, yun, that way, madedescribe natin kung ano nangyayari sa phenomena. For example, yung mga, let's go to economics. Ayan, yung mga GDP or yung, for example, yung GDP, so malalaman natin no, kung maganda ba yung economy natin or stable ba yung economy natin. And for example, sa companies, paano ba na-describe in numbers kung maganda ba yung company? Siyempre kung stable yung mga financial statements nila. Okay? Kung mataas yung sales, kung profitable siya. So, through numbers, no, nakikita natin yung kalagayan, no? Na-describe natin kung maayos ba yung isang company. So, yun yung mga ways, no? Kaya na-describe ng numbers yung mga bagay-bagay sa mundo. But for our learning objectives, so at the end of this lesson, we should be able to describe characteristics of quantitative research. We should be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of quantitative research, discuss the different kinds of quantitative research, and evaluate topics that can be studied quantitatively. Okay, so for example, no, ayan, kahit sa sarili nyo, mag-imagine na lang tayo since nasa online tayo eh. Describe your group using words. Yan, kunyari nagkaroon na kayo ng groupings, di ba? For example, sa mga ABM, may groupings sila sa business plan. And I think sa ibang subject may mga groupings din kayo. So, describe your group using words. For example, paano ba natin madedescribe? Hindi nakikipag-cooperate? Yan. Or cooperative naman? Ano pa ba? What else? Ano pa bang description ng groupings? Or yung grupo nyo, no? Using words. Masisipag, gano'n. Or tamad. That can be a description using words. Yan. What else? What else pa? Yan. Responsible daw. Totoo ba yan? May unity. Malakas ang loob. Hardworking, organized. Totoo ba yan? Baka naman sinusugarcoat nyo lang yung yung groupings nyo. Baka naman tamad yung mga kagrupo nyo, tapos hindi nakikipag-cooperate. Mga nawawala bigla, hindi maaasahan. Okay, so good thing, no, yung mga napili nyong kagrupo is hardworking, may chemistry, malakas ang loob, may unity, may mga responsable and active. Okay? So yun, i-describe naman natin using numbers. Okay, how can we describe our group using numbers? So, siguro for example ako, na-describe ko yung groupings nyo through giving grades. For example, 90 pong groupings na to kasi magaling sila. 95 sila kasi magaling sila, ganun. Or pwede nyo rin naman i-describe by using deduction. Diba? So for example, -5 to kasi tamad, ganun. Yan. And also yan, pwede rin natin i-describe using 5 girls and 1 boy. Ayan. So, by gender, pwede natin i-describe ng ganun. And that way. Okay, so maraming ways, no, na madedescribe natin yung groupings using numbers and using words. Okay, so quantitative research deals with numerical values and how they can describe a phenomenon or infer a relationship. Okay, so using numerical numbers or numerical values. So quantitative research, it is a go-to approach for scientific inquiry because of its ability to test hypotheses. Okay, so gumagamit tayo dito ng statistic and probability, such as that, yung mga t-test or anything else. Yan. So the basis of formulating and testing hypotheses are variables. So ano ba yung usual na variables? So depende yun, no, sa objectives, mga objectives natin. Nakalagay doon sa objectives nyo. For example, if we are checking, no, the financial management of every family, so isa sa mga variables natin is yung spending habit nila, ayan, yung expenses nila for the month, yung income nila, ayan, and then yung number nila within the family. So ayun yung mga possible na variables. Okay, so which are traits that numerically describe or give meaning to an object, phenomenon, or group of people? Okay, so yun yung mga possible na variables. Okay, so variables are the ones that are usually identified, examined, described, or correlated to answer a scientific inquiry. No? So again, no, kunyari, we want to check kung paano na ma-manage ng isang family yung financial nila. So, about financial management. So, yun. Marami tayong pwedeng maging variables doon. So, pwedeng maging income, yan yung income nila, yung salary grade nila, yung salary nila. Okay? And then yung expenses nila, yung spending habit nila doon. So, we'll check, no, kung madalas kasi sa Pilipino, no, ang behavior nila. So, galing din naman to sa mga studies, no, using statistic and probability. Usually, ang kaugalian ng mga Pilipino, kung gaano kalaki yung sweldo nila, ganun din kalaki yung expenses nila. Okay, so kadalasan, no, pagkasweldo pa lang, abay, nagsasapin tayo kinabukasan. Or kadalasan, no, yung sweldo is pambayad na lang ng utang. Okay, so through checking those variables, we'll know, no, kung paano ba nagmamanage or paano na ma-manage ng isang family yung expenses nila and then yung income nila. Okay, so variables, an independent variable is the variable that is manipulated, especially in experiments, while dependent variable depends on the independent variable. For example, pwedeng maging dependent variable. For example, yung weight, no? Usually kapag tumatangkad yung tao, madalas na lumalaki din yung weight nila. Okay, so yung weight can be dependent on the height of the person. Okay? So yun yung example. Okay, characteristic of quantitative research. Yan. Controllability, generalizability, objectivity, and replicability. Okay, so meaning, no, kapag yung mga formulas kasi can be replicated or can be used in different types of studies. Yan. So when we say controllability, yan, quantitative research should be in an environment where all variables are identified and can be controlled. Okay, so dapat pag gumagawa tayo ng research, no, make sure lang natin na madaling i-identify yung mga variables na kailangan natin. So, minsan, yung mga researcher, nahihirapan sila, kung meron silang gustong pag-aralan, tapos hindi available yung mga data, no, in the environment. So, mahihirapan silang pag-aralan yun. So, kayo, kapag, ang suggestion ko, kapag namimili kayo ng topic, ayan, i-check nyo muna kung yung mga variables or yung mga data na kailangan nyo is available in the environment. For example, nakikita ba siya sa YouTube or sa Google or in any site, no? Para hindi tayo mahirapang gumawa ng research. Okay, so generalizability is from larger sample sizes that the results are based on a representative of the population. So for example, salary of the Metro Manila, ayan, or income of the Metro Manila. Okay, so yun, no? Okay. Through that, nakikita natin yung pinaka-average na salary, no, na kinikita ng NCR or Metro Manila or even the province. Okay, so for example din sa mga boto, ayan, yung mga lumalabas sa survey, representative ng isang population, for example, sino ba yung malaki yung boto sa NCR, malaki yung boto sa ibang mga provinces, gano'n. Objectivity, the results of the data are observable and measurable using structured instruments. So yun, kapag pumili tayo ng variables, i-make sure natin na na-measure siya. Okay, so for example, yung income, paano ba natin siya na-measure? Siyempre, yung amount na nasa payslip natin. Ayan, yung height ng tao, using centimeter or meters. Ayan, yung weight, no, using kilograms and grams or anything, no, kapag temperature, degrees naman. Okay, so just make sure yung variable na napili natin can be measured. Okay? Replicability. The research study should be replicable by other teams of researchers that will eventually come up with similar outcomes. So for example, pinag-aralan natin ang financial management ng NCR. Just make sure lang yung nagawa mong study can be used by the other provinces or the other location. So, ayun, dapat pwede siyang i-replicate ng ibang location. Okay, so kunyari, yun nga, for example, inaaral natin yung financial management ng NCR. Yan, and the province of Cavite want to use that study. Then, yung mga formulas mo doon, yung mga variables mo, yan, dapat madaling i-replicate din or nagagamit din ng ibang location. Okay, so for example naman, we want to study the behavior of, ano pa ba? Example, yung mga nasa hiring, no? Ayan, or for example na lang yung mga schools, ayan, yung schools, yung mga nag-a-apply for college. Kaya we want to measure kung gaano ba kadami yung nag-a-apply for college sa ganitong school. Then, dapat yung studies na yan, yung study na magagawa mo, is dapat pwedeng i-replicate din ng ibang school. Kung gusto nilang i-measure kung gaano kadami yung nag-a-apply for college. Okay, ganon. Strengths of quantitative research. Analysis of data is assisted with statistical method. Large-scale research can be undertaken. Data can be represented in a graphical or tabular form. So yun, ang kaganda sa quantitative research, nakikita agad natin yung result or na-interpret agad natin yung result using graphical form or tabular form or even image. Okay, so in just one page or in just one picture, we'll know kung ano ba yung naging result ng study natin. So unlike ng qualitative, we have to read the summary, we have to read every detail para makalaman natin kung ano ba yung naging result ng research na yun. Okay, so usually naman, no, kapag quantitative research, ang kadalasan lang yan, yes or no eh, or significant or insignificant, parang dalawang sagot lang yung lumalabas. Ayan, kung yes or no ba, or yun nga, significant or insignificant, yung relationship ng mga variables. So, ang weakness naman ito, a large sample size requires a lot of time and effort. A statistical analysis of data requires an expert to perform. Quantifying and reducing observation to numerical values makes it too simplistic. So meaning, no, if we really want to check yung mga variables natin sa isang location, as much as possible, large yung sample na makukuha natin para ma-check talaga natin, no, kung tama talaga yung data na or answer na gusto nating makuha. Okay, so marami kang i-interviewin, hindi lang isa or dalawa. Unlike ng qualitative, piling tao lang i-interview mo eh. This can be done by interviewing 1 to 3 person. While pag quantitative, larger sample yung kailangan mo para makuha mo talaga yung pinaka-accurate na answer na hinahanap mo. So, isa rin sa weaknesses ng quantitative is you need help from experts. So, meron tayong mga statistician. Itong mga statistician na to, mga licensed din yan, nag-take din yan ng mga board exam, and certified din sila yan, para magawa nila yung study na meron kayo. Okay, so pag medyo higher yung yung study na meron kayo, yun kailangan nyo talaga ng help ng mga statistician. Okay? Especially for college and masteral degree. Yung ibang school, yung malalaking school like UP or FEU and Ateneo, nag-hire talaga sila ng statistician para ma-analyze, no, yung yung study or research na ginagawa nila or thesis, gano'n. So, quantifying and reducing an observation of numerical values makes it too simplistic. So, ayun nga, medyo simple nga siya kasi nga kailangan mo lang mag-compute, ganun, and then interpret. Pero yun nga, mahirap yung part na kino-compute siya. Pero yun nga, pag mga higher naman, pwede ka naman mag-hire ng mga statistician. Pero pag siguro mga high school, yan, kayo talaga yung gagawa nung pag-solve. Quantitative research has its strengths and weaknesses. So it is important that we are aware of both. Yan. So, ayun nga, no, pag mamimili ka ng research, pipiliin mo ba yung quantitative or qualitative? Though sa experience ko, mas nadalian ako sa quantitative compared sa qualitative. Kasi sa qualitative, kahit sabihin natin 1 to 3 person na yung pwede mong i-interview, no? Based naman yun sa study mo. Pero marami kang data na kukunin, no? For example, kapag nakagawa ka ng thesis na quantitative research, pwedeng 200 pages eh. Pero kapag qualitative, ine-expect natin na lalagpas yun ng 400 pages. So, maraming data nga lang na kinukuha kapag qualitative. Maraming narrative, maraming summary, marami kang susulatin. So, walang numbers doon, pero yun, marami kang ikukwento. Kahit na 1 to 3 person lang yung ini-interview mo. Okay, so types of quantitative research, experimental and non-experimental. So, through experimental research. Yung non-experimental naman, descriptive research, comparative research, correlational research, and quasi-experimental research. Oh, wait. Okay, so nung master's degree ako, ang quantitative research ko nun is comparative research. Okay, so medyo magastos siya kasi dalawang statistic yung dapat mong kuning answer kapag comparative. Okay, so let's describe each, no? Kapag experimental, the experimental and non-experimental types of quantitative research depend on the topic and the nature of the problem being investigated. Okay, so yung type ng research or quantitative research na gagamitin mo is nakadepende doon sa topic na mapipili mo. Okay, dapat kung ano yung swak doon. Okay, so when we say through experimental research, the primary objective of a true experimental research design is to identify a cause-effect relationship between the variables where the samples are randomized. So for example, we just want to check yung relationship between two variables. This can be, meron ba silang significant relationship between the two? For example, kapag let's say sa size ng tao, ng hayop, ng kahit ano, ayan, siguro sabihin natin ng hayop, no? And we want to check kung ano ba yung relationship nung size ng hayop sa number ng heartbeat nila. We all know na, ayun, feel ko familiar naman kayo na kapag lumalaki yung size ng hayop, lumiliit yung umuunti yung number ng heartbeat nila. Am I right? Have you heard that? Yan. So kapag mas maliit yung hayop, yung animal, mas mabilis yung heartbeat nila. Kapag mga elephants, yan, for example, yung mga malalaking animals, mabagal yung heartbeat nila. So yun, we just want to check yung cause and effect relationship between the variables. Okay, so yung relationship between the two variables. Okay, so for example, to find out if sunlight affects the growth of the plants, we have three setups. Set A, set B, set E, set C. Set A is to grow seeds that will receive ample amount of sunlight. Seed B will be placed where sunlight is limited. And C, and completely dark. Okay, so all of them will be planted in the same type of soil. And considering na other variables are the same. Yan. Same types of soil, equal amounts of water, and then the result will be recorded after days of observation. Okay, so ayan, we want to check yung number naman ng sunlight for the seed. So ano kaya yung magiging result? Ang magiging result niyan kapag ample amount or enough amount of sunlight, then mas mabilis mag-grow yung seed. While kapag completely dark or hindi talaga nakaka-receive ng sunlight yung seed, so more likely mabagal yung paglaki niya. Okay, so that's how we do the true experimental research. Okay, we want to check the effect of the other variable to other variable. Okay, so quasi-experimental research mirrors experimental research, but it is not true experimental research, where a causal relationship can be determined with the use of dependent and independent variables. Okay, so yun, Para siya yung kanina, no? Hindi pala, ano pala, experiment talaga siya. Ayan, ito naman parang random na sample and we just want to check through using statistic and probability. Kumbaga gagamit na tayo ng formula just to check if merong relationship yung two variables, yon. So ang pinagkaibahan nito, no, yung through experimental research, gagawa ka talaga ng experiment. Okay, so sunlight, and then maglalagay ka ng seed. Yan. While yung quasi-experimental, just pick some random variable and then just check if may relationship between the two variables using formulas in statistic and probability. Okay, so you wish to know the effect of height on milk brand preference. Through experiments would have randomly assigned respondents to group where they would be subjected to taste test in order to know which brand they prefer. So because height is an innate characteristic of person, respondent cannot be randomly assigned to groups. Instead, the group or respondent are assigned group based on their heights. Okay, so parang kung gumagawa tayo ng true experiment, ang gagawin natin is papatikman natin sila ng milk, and then we'll check siguro the other day or after months to check if lumaki ba sila. No, that's true experiment. While if you want to do quasi experimental, ang ginagawa natin is we can do some techniques, no. For example, kukunin natin lahat ng mga matatanghad, and then we'll check kung ano ba yung brand ng milk yung iniinom nila. Okay, so more likely, no, kapag kunyari ano ba yung mga types ng milk, like Burr brand, siguro yun, most likely kapag we want to check, no, kung lahat ba ng matangkad nito, most likely ang iniinom nila is Burr brand. Okay, just using formulas in statistic and probability. Okay, gets ba natin yun? Gets natin? Okay, so next naman, descriptive research. A non-experimental research design focuses on the description of factors, variables, or phenomena that occur in nature. Okay, so for example, to identify the factors that contribute to the spoilage of food, a survey is conducted to know about food spoilage. Okay, so here we can use mean-median mode. Okay, so from the result of that survey conducted, for example, you observed the frequency of the temperatures as a factor is the highest, and this means that the temperature contributes to food spoilage the most. Okay, so ayun, dito sa example na to, no, we want to know the reason or the factors kung bakit napapanis yung food. Okay, so yun, mag-i-interview tayo, i-list down lahat ng possible words. For example, kasi mainit, or depende sa ingredients, or kasi nalangawan, ganyan. So doon i-check natin, no, or i-mean-median mode natin. And dito, ang lumabas sa result, no, ang pinakamadami siguro, or most likely, yung sagot is dahil sa temperature. Okay? Usually kapag tag-init, diba, mas madaling napapanis ng hangin, gano'n. Okay, so comparative research, also called quasi-comparative research, its primary objective is to compare two variables in order to identify whether there exists a quantitative relationship between them. So this kind of research usually involves two or more groups in one independent variable. So siguro yung example ko dito is yung naging research ko. So ayun, again, it's about the financial management. And ang kino-compare ko dito, yung financial management between the senior and then the non-senior. For example, sino ba yung mga kino-consider natin as senior? Ito yung mga ages 60 and above. While the non-senior, ito yung mga 59 and below. So yun, chine-check natin kung ano ba yung, chinek ko kung paano ba hinahandle ng mga senior yung finances nila, and then kung paano hinahandle ng mga non-senior yung mga finances nila. So same variables, but different groups. Okay, so we just want to check no kung sino ba yung mas magaling mag-handle ng pera, yung mga senior ba or mga non-senior. Okay, so may mga variables ka, but different groups. Okay, so you want, for example, another example is you want to know if attendance to the school summer program is the cause of students' increased class participation. So you identify two groups of students who enrolled in the summer program and those who did not. Okay, so you collect the data on their individual participation, and after analyzing the data, you concluded that the summer program helped the students in participating more in class. So ito naman, same variable, they want to know if participative ba or nagkikipag-cooperate ba yung mga students sa class. Okay, but two types of students. Yung isa ay mga summer students, yung isa naman non-summer students. Okay, and then, syempre, same variables pa din. Same, kumbaga, for example, to check yung mga grades nila. Ayan, and then, yung mga number ng assignments na send nila, na submit nila. Ayan. And then, same variables na gagamitin sa mga summer students and the non-summer students. And then, at the end of the process, no, after analyzing the data, na compute mo na apply mo na yung formula, then na-conclude natin, no, na mas participative or mas cooperative yung mga students in the summer program. Okay, so correlational research, its primary objective is to compare two variables, then identify the relationship between them. Kasi parang, parang nasa experimental research din. Okay, parang i-check mo, no, yung relationship between two variables. Are they, tawag dito, if the other variable ba increases, the other variable ba decreases, or both variables ba, pag yung isang variable ba nag-increase, then the other variable will increase. Okay, parang same din sa experimental kanina na kino-compare yung two variables. Okay, so if you want to know the significant relationship between the length of the sleep and the student productivity, yan. So, ayan, we want to check, no, kung mas mahaba ba ang tulog ng estudyante, mas magiging productive ba sila? Yan. So the data on length of sleep is based on the bedtime and waking up time of the student. Data on the student productivity is based on number of activities being finished every day. So the data analysis shows that the closer the length of sleep to 8 hours, the higher the number of activities done. You concluded that there exists a direct relationship. When we say direct relationship, pag nag-increase yung isang variable, mag-i-increase yung isang variable. Okay? So meaning, no, kapag mas mahaba ang tulog ng estudyante, mas magiging productive siya. Mas madami siyang activities na nagagawa. Okay? Kasi relax yung utak nila di ba? Nare-refresh yung utak nila. So, mas madali nilang nagagawa yung mga activities nila. Okay? So, yun. Ito, correlational research, parang isang study. Ayun. Kapag dalawang correlational research yung ginagawa mo, then nagiging comparative research siya. Okay? Gets ba yun? Okay, so quantitative research may be either experimental or non-experimental. Okay, so using internet resources, okay, laktawan natin to. Okay, so tip, no? The word effect is indicative that the research study is to understand a cause and effect relationship attributed to comparative experimental and quasi-experimental research. The word relationship or correlation is a clue that the research study is either a comparative or correlational study. Okay, so quick check. How can quantitative research generalize an entire population? Yan, kapag kanina, parang sa vote, no? Kapag kinonsolidate natin lahat na kung sino nilang gustong manalong presidente, doon natin nakikita kung ano ba yung mas malaking boto, no, for that location. Okay, so again, quantitative research deals with numerical value and how they can describe a phenomenon or infer a relationship. Characteristics of quantitative research include controllability, generalizability, objectivity, and replicability. Quantitative research tests hypotheses, which are based on variables that can either be independent or dependent. Quantitative research may be experimental or non-experimental. Okay, descriptive, comparative, correlational, and quasi-experimental. Okay, so do we have any question? May question ba tayo regarding our topic? Ano yung part na hindi natin na-gets? Okay, kung nabasa natin ulit, no, siguro maintindihan natin. Just let me know kung mayroong part na hindi nyo naintindihan. Kasi magagamit ito sa sa college. Sayang naman, no, kung hindi nyo siya maintindihan. Okay, are we good? Are we good on lesson 1? I think yes, no? Okay, so lesson 2. Okay, last lesson. Since 6:30 naman tayo nag-start. Hatiin lang natin. Okay, so unit 1, lesson 2. Types of quantitative research. Okay, so have you ever looked around and wonder how things are related to one another? Sa mga curious ka, no, kung ano bang relasyon ng isang variable sa isang variable. For our learning objectives at the end of this lesson, we should be able to identify different types of quantitative research and explain the characteristic of each type of quantitative research and apply the types of quantitative research that is appropriate for each specific field. Okay, so what keywords come into your mind when you hear the word survey, experiment? So when we say survey, no, more likely quantitative yan. Kapag experiment, this can be qualitative or quantitative as well. Ano? And syempre, no, connected siya sa research. So how would you describe a survey and an experiment based on the common keywords you listed? Okay, so when we say quantitative research, it is defined as a means for testing objective theories by examining the relationship among variables. Okay, we are checking the relationship or the correlation of those variables chosen. Quantitative research may be either correlational or causal. Causal. Correlational or causal. Quantitative research, in general, quantitative research focuses on the following: collection of the observable and measurable data. Okay, collecting of data. This can be done through survey and interviews, but usually survey. standardized data collection instrument using, this can be done using face-to-face interview, telephone interview, internet interview, or survey, and statistical techniques in data analysis. You might be using t-test or anything, any statistical techniques. Correlational research means research that involves identifying a relationship between two variables. So a correlation or tinatawag na relationship is a statistical measure of association between two variables. While causal research looks at causes and effects, parang through experimental research. A causation refers to the claim that a change in one variable creates a change in another variable. This can be done through experimental research. While yung correlation, this can be tested using statistical formulas. What is the difference between the correlation and causation? So the correlation research looks at the following: whether an association exists between variables, the magnitude of existing association between two variables, and the direction of the association between two variables. Kumbaga kung nag-increase ba yung isang variable, mag-i-increase ba or mag-i-decrease yung isang variable. And parang this can be described then by using linear form, in the linear form. Like yung may mga slope, ganyan, pa-curve, or pa-slope upward, or pa-slope ba downward. An example of correlational research is the relationship between hours of sleep and test scores of students. So, ganina, diba? Parang the more na mas mahaba ang tulog ng students is mas mataas yung score or mas productive yung student. Okay, but in this study, diba kanina merong relationship or merong direct relationship or correlation between the sleep and the number of activities submitted. While here, there is no significant relationship of hours of sleep and the test score of the students. So dito sa study na to, wala daw kinalaman yung haba ng tulog ng student sa taas ng score na nakukuha sa mga quizzes ng mga students. Okay. Okay, so application of correlational research is often used in quantitative research in a social science. Okay, so psychology, political science, economics, and etc. In psychology, correlational research is used to look at patterns and associations of human behavior. Okay, like yung sleep and number of activities submitted. Ayan. For example, the number of hours a student spends on social media and his academic performance. Okay. You want to check if may correlation ba between the two. For example, kapag more ba na exposed sa social media or madaming oras ang ginugugol niya sa Facebook is mas mababa yung academic performance niya. Yeah. We want to check if may effect ba yun. Okay, so in economics naman, correlational research may also be used to determine that what affects or is affected by certain economic variables. So an example is looking at the relationship between the foreign exchange rates and credit rating of a particular country. Okay, so we want to check if kapag ba mas malaki yung exchange ng pera or palitan ng pera sa country na to, mas malaki yung credit rating nila, kumbaga mas malaki yung credit limit nila. Okay? So, siyempre, nakukunin natin yung mga data from expert or from appropriate resources. So in the political science naman, correlational research may be used to study whether an association exists between different political variables. So for example, looking at the relationship between crime rate and number of votes a politician garnered during an election. Okay, so meaning votes a politician garnered during an election and the crime rate. Okay, so for example, paano ba natin to i-correlate? Votes sa politician and then the crime rate. Okay. So meaning kunyari during the election day, kapag ba habang dumadami yung votes na nagagather na no during the election, tumataas din ba yung crime rate during that day? Or maaaring nabawasan kasi busy ang mga tao kakaboto. Okay, while correlational quantitative research can be determined whether a relationship exists between two variables, it does not say that one variable causes the other. Okay? Yan. So, maaring doon sa research natin, kung nag-i-increase yung isang variable, nag-i-increase din yung another variable, but that doesn't mean na meron talaga silang relasyon sa isa't isa. So you'll do another statistical technique just to check if talagang merong relationship or connected sila sa isa't isa. Okay, that can be checked using p-test ata or chi-square or depende no sa topic. Okay, causal research deals with the cause and effect. Okay, causal research, cause and effect. For example, examining the cause and effect relationship between food ingredients and the rate of decay of a food sample. So a possible research study based on this example can be examined how an additional unit of the food ingredient causes or leads to faster decay of the food sample. For example, kapag mas madaming chemical, mas matagal yung days na pwede siyang mapanis. Or kapag the more na organic yung isang food na yun na ina-add natin is mas mabilis siyang ma-decay kasi nga organic, diba? Okay, so causal research is often used in studying the natural science. So for example, biology, chemistry, physics. But it is not exclusive to this field. Okay, so in chemistry, causal research is applied in the conduct of chemical experiments to see whether a change in a quantity of one substance affects the characteristic of another substance. Okay, so last, let's discuss the survey research before we end the last discussion. Okay, so survey research, when we say survey research, it is a correlational type of quantitative research. So I think familiar na kayo no sa mga survey. This design makes use of questionnaire as its main data collection tool. You can use Google Form, or usually talaga Google Form na ngayon kasi pandemic, di ba, bawal ang face-to-face. Experimental research is aimed at causation with the use of cause and effect logic. It looks at whether the application of a treatment known as intervention causes an effect on the sample being experimented. So, in research and survey research, main components, syempre, yung survey design, yung population and sample. So, when we say survey design, you can use yung mga, you can use 1 to 5 or by rating 1 to 5, or you can use multiple choice. Yun, pwedeng ganun yung research design. Population and sample, syempre yung number ng respondents na kailangan mo. Survey instrument, Google form ba or face-to-face survey or anything else. Data analysis and interpretation. So survey design, it may be cross-sectional or longitudinal. So a cross-sectional survey acquires information at one point in time. Okay, so longitudinal, a survey acquires information at multiple points in time to compare, contrast, and assess changes in responses. While yung population and sample, and population is a general group of people. For example, ang population mo is Las Piñas, and then the sample mo is yung ano lang, mamimili ka lang kung sino-sinong part ng Las Piñas yung interviewin mo. Depende doon sa topic mo. Yan, so sample is a subgroup of the population that is chosen either randomly or purposefully. So depende sa topic mo to participate in the survey research. Survey instrument, it is called the questionnaire. It contains close-ended questionnaire with fixed answer that will be given to the selected sample. And you can ask behavior, attitude, opinions, characteristic, expectations, self-classification, or knowledge. Okay, so for the behavior, how frequently do you use social media? For attitude, beliefs, and opinions, what do you think about the animal therapy? Characteristic, what is your highest educational attainment? Expectation, do you plan to visit a coffee shop in the next 2 weeks? Or do you consider yourself socially aware of current events and issues? Okay, who is your student council batch representative for the knowledge? Okay, so data analysis and interpretation. The analysis is both descriptive and inferential. So when we say descriptive, it provides a general report of the result, the survey, which may be include frequencies and average scores. Inferential naman, comparison among the survey results to establish and explain the relationship. So pag descriptive naman, no, kung yung isang question yun lang yung dinedescribe mo. While yung inferential analysis, you are describing two or more questions within the questionnaire, just to compare, no, and explain the relationship. Okay, so last, no, application of the survey research. Field of study, we have medicine, chemistry, biology, psychology, political science, economics, culinary arts, and business. So for example, if for the business, most preferred mobile phone brands, syempre, no, we want to know para ano yung ibibenta natin or ano ba yung meron dito sa mobile brand na to, bakit maraming bumibili. So we can replicate or parang magaya natin, di ba? For the economics, for example, level income per household, or pwede natin i-top din dito yung mga GDP, GNP, gano'n. And for example, sa biology, most common inherited genetic disease among males. Ano ba yung madalas na nagiging sakit ng mga males? So we want to check. Para malaman natin kung ano yung gamot doon. Bakit ito yung madalas na sakit ng male? Okay, so remember the main components of a survey research are the survey design, population sample, survey instrument, and data analysis and interpretation. Okay, so that will be the last, and we'll continue next next week. So do you have any question regarding practical research to quantitative? First chapter? None naman? Okay, none. Pag binasa nyo ulit, no, let me know if meron kayong part na hindi naintindihan. Then, I'll explain din naman. Okay, lagi naman akong free sa messenger. Okay, if none, we can now end the call. We can dismiss na. So, bye everyone. Good evening. Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.